Royal. Please drink responsibly.
Tim Cowlishaw, J.A. Adonde, Israel Gutierrez, Frank Isola. The halfway point of the NFL season, and I have a scientific question for you all. Who is good? And Jordan Love's debut. Check this out. This is where Love's mother and girlfriend were sitting in the stadium. Sometimes love comes from far away
It's not a bad seat.
Let's go!
That's a nice view right there.
Why even go?
See everything.
Probably did them a favor.
You can see St. Louis today.
Could have bought better tickets. I feel like I ruined Aaron Rodgers should give up his ticket.
Just when you think you know something about this NFL season, teams go out and prove you know absolutely nothing. How the Bills and the Cowboys and Rams all stubbed their toes this week. Buffalo losing to Jacksonville, team that hadn't won a game in this country in a season and a half. Buffalo scored 6 points. Dallas shut out for the majority of this game at home by a team that just dumped their Hall of Fame linebacker. Rams, I'm going to put to the side for a second because Tennessee and what they did is very impressive. So, Tim, I'll start with you. You were in Dallas. You were there. For Buffalo and for Dallas, what was the more troubling loss?
Well, let me say this about Buffalo. I picked Buffalo to win the Super Bowl, and they're a long way from locking up that trophy the way they're playing. Number 17 on Buffalo wasn't even the best Josh Allen on the field yesterday, but they had a chance to win that game. Dallas trailed 30-0 in the fourth quarter, too. As you said, a team that jettisoned Von Miller for draft picks in the middle of the week. And this was a game where Dak Prescott saw fewer blitzes than all year, had more time to throw than all year, and through 3 quarters was 6 for 19 for 79 yards with an interception.
What was the major malfunction?
The offense didn't exist. The offense couldn't function. Trayvon Diggs, who has been a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, he gave up 1 touchdown. He committed interference in the end zone. He took away an interception with a penalty. He was as bad on the other side as Dak. Nobody played well.
Is this a game where you just burn the film, Tim? Or is there something? I mean, I still have to ask, what was the major malfunction with Dak Prescott? This was his return.
It was his return, and everybody made a big deal about it being his return. He missed 1 game. That's like a bye week. It's not like he's really been gone. Okay. He was off. Cooper dropped the ball. Lamb dropped the ball. Pollard dropped the ball. Nobody played well. The Cowboys burn it, but other teams look at that defense not blitzing and disguising coverages, and they're going to give that a try the rest of the year.
Bringing J.A. Adonde here. More troubling loss. Was it Buffalo or was it Dallas?
First, Tony, how's the question not which Josh Allen would you rather have?
You can go there, too.
I don't even recognize this place anymore. What are we doing here, Tony? But the Buffalo one, it just is more eye-opening because think about it. We gave them credit. We started buying stock in them, most people, when they dismantled the Kansas City Chiefs. As the season has progressed, we've seen that isn't that impressive. Dallas, I'm going to give allowances for, Dak Prescott being out of sync. His receivers were dropping passes. And also, this is what they do. In the month of November, over the last 8 years, they're 8-8. Finally, this game turned on the rare blocked punt that was not advanced beyond the first down marker, which actually turned into a first down for the Broncos. I've never seen that happen before. So fluky play when Dallas was still in it, fluky game.
Israel Gutierrez.
For the Cowboys, to me, not only is it like an any given Sunday situation, but their excuse, whether Tim wants to believe it's true or not, of Dak Prescott missing a game and being rusty, missing practices, it's at least there for them. The Buffalo Bills don't really have a great excuse. They're the highest scoring team in the league. They were favored by 15 against Jacksonville, which you said hasn't won a game in this country since pre-pandemic. And so, yeah, it's more problematic for them. Sorry about that. But it's also more of an issue because the AFC seems like it's up for grabs for them. It seemed like it coming into this game. There's no front runner. It seemed like Buffalo was that. And now you look at the 8-24 records that the teams that they'd beaten going into this weekend have, and you're like, okay, maybe they haven't really done a whole lot of work. Maybe they just beat up on Miami a couple of times.
All right. And Frank Isola, more troubling loss from this week 9 in the NFL season. Was it Buffalo or Dallas?
Izzy has always said, expect the unexpected in a 17-game NFL season. I actually thought the NFL got more interesting yesterday with all these different games. For me, I think Dallas just laid an egg. You can expect that. But Buffalo, you look at their wins. 2 against Miami. They beat Washington. They beat Houston. I still think the Kansas City game win is an impressive one. But they scored on their first 2 drives, field goals, didn't score again. And you mentioned Josh Allen of Jacksonville, 8 tackles, career high. First career INT, first career fumble recovery. And oh, by the way, he went to Montclair High School. And his sister plays for is in the WNBA. So there you go.
I'll give a point for the sister. That's impressive. Yeah, the first time you had a guy with the same name, Zach, and then intercept. That's an amazing thing. Kalasham, the last word here on Dallas. There was a touchdown Denver had late. It looked like there were more Broncos fans than Cowboys fans in Dallas. Was that the case?
This has been a thing since they built this stadium, especially the AFC teams. They come once every 8 years. Those people are ready to buy those tickets, and Cowboy fans are, unfortunately for Dallas, too ready to sell them those tickets. I'd say there were about 20,000 of them there yesterday. It wasn't the Steelers,
was Woody there?
But it was an impressive outpouring.
Question I asked before. Is anybody good? Well, what the Tennessee Titans have done the last 4 weeks, that's resume number 1 in the pile. They beat Buffalo, they beat KC, they beat Indy, and last night they beat the Rams without Derrick Henry. It was Matthew Stafford giveaway day, and refereeing was involved in this one too. But there's no faking Tennessee went into Los Angeles and got the win. Frank, what was this game about to you?
Yeah, and that penalty you just saw there, that's on Aaron Donald. That is not roughing the passer, but they did have 12 penalties in the game. Stafford was sacked 5 times. He came into the game only being sacked 7 times. Tennessee's defense played really well because offensively, they didn't miss Derrick Henry for 1 game, but they only gained a total of 194 yards. Their longest drive was 44, so field position was a big part of it. That's a great road win. Make no mistake about it, but they're going to have some issues offensively.
Real Gutierrez.
There was a play early in this game. It was 3rd and 2, and I thought to myself, this is classic Ryan Tannehill offense. To get that 3rd and 2, they threw the ball 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. It ended up being a 4th and 5 because it was read easily. And I thought, man, this Titans team is just not going to be anything without Derrick Henry if they've got to rely on Ryan Tannehill. But you've got that defense, and maybe, just maybe, it wasn't just Derrick Henry what was the identity of this Titans team. Maybe it was this defense as well. So yeah, this is as sort of shocked as Matt Stafford has looked. You know, the obviously terrible pass in the end zone that ended up being a pick 6 instead of a safety. A lot of people are comparing that to Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz says, do it left-handed. But I do think, like, if you make the Rams look like that, you are a legitimate defense. And so yeah, maybe they won't miss Derrick Henry as much. Maybe they'll need him in a 4th quarter of a tight game to sort of, wear out an opponent. But in this one, showed they can win.
Yeah, was this game more about Titans for you or more about the Rams?
Certainly the Titans and their defense and the overall defensive strategy. Chris Collinsworth made a good point during the broadcast that he sees more teams adopting the approach that that the Buccaneers used against Kansas City in the Super Bowl last year. And by the way, owners out there, feel free to hire Todd Bowles, defensive coordinator for Tampa Bay if you have an opening this offseason. But that stretch where you're pressuring the quarterback up front, you're dropping as many as 4 defensive back to take away the long pass. It worked in the Super Bowl, and we saw it work last night. And they're capable of executing it. The pressure that they put on Stafford, just completely disrupting him, sacking him 5 times. And yes, that can go a long way to disrupting the offenses that are prevalent in today's NFL.
A lot of praise here for Tennessee, and that's deserved. The man who grew up in Los Angeles kind of excusing the Rams' performance here, Jay. Yeah. Noticing that, Tim, what did you see last night?
They weren't there the last 20 years.
I heard some needless criticism from the Lumberjack and Plasma 3 of Ryan Tannehill. I'm going to let that go for a minute and say this. Collinsworth and Michaels had just stopped talking about Matt Stafford. He's got to be in that MVP conversation. And boom, here come those 2 interceptions. The one Izzy mentioned where I'm just going to spin for a while in the end zone and throw it wherever it ends up. And, you can't make plays like that. But to J.A.'s point, a team that struggles to run the ball some, like the Rams, teams are going to keep defending them that way and see if they can get out of it.
Brawny performance from Tennessee. Maybe they're this week's best team in the AFC. One more game to talk about. Kansas City 13, Green Bay 7. Does Green Bay win that game if Aaron Rodgers plays? Donde thinks so. Jordan Love's debut, how Love looked to you, how Love's mother maybe could see it if she squinted from the top row, and how Patrick Mahomes looked to you. It's a career low 166 yards passing. It's the career low rock bottom 4.5 yards per attempt for Mahomes. J.A., have at it.
I think we do get the final, the end point, the period on the end of the sentence on this Aaron Rodgers episode. Remember, vaccinated players can return to action, active status, if they test positive twice in 24-hour period. Unvaccinated players
Negative,
are automatically out 10 days. So they win this game, I think, if correct, test negative. They win this game if he plays. It's pretty simple. I mean, even with Jordan Love threw for more yards than Patrick Mahomes in this game. If you get a halfway decent game from Aaron Rodgers, the level that we've seen him play at, they win this game. So we do have the final stand on that. That's really the only thing we have answered. We don't know whether Jordan Love is up for this or not. I think it's unfair to judge him where he had a half a week to prepare for his first NFL start. We don't know how good the Packers are. I think we can be pretty sure that this is who the Chiefs are based on what we've seen throughout half the season.
Israel Gutierrez, what did you see last night?
It's hard to judge Jordan Love, but it's still this huge question mark with this Chiefs offense. Can it recover? Can it be the offense that we remember from the last couple of years? Basically, the play that sealed it, whereas Patrick Mahomes was rolling to his right and hit Tyreek Hill, seemed like the old Chiefs. It seemed like when he was pumping his fist, he was just like, yes, that's what we're supposed to be. Maybe that turns into some momentum. I don't know, but you're going game after game after game here where this Chiefs offense does not look very good, and it's hard to predict that they're going to be able to get that back.
Frank Isola.
From a marketing standpoint, Aaron Rodgers' Q rating may be down, but after watching that game, his bid to win the MVP actually got enhanced by not being out there yesterday. Jordan Love, it's not a referendum on his career at all. He had a really poor game. And give Green Bay's defense credit. They were terrific all night until the biggest play of the game on that third down play that Izzy just talked about. If they stop him there, do I think Jordan Love is driving them down the field? No, I don't. That was a tough go, and Aaron Rodgers got nobody to blame from himself because that should have been a Green Bay win.
Kalishaw.
The way this game went, the Packers' offense being so inept, it made me think this is still all about the Chiefs' offense and all the things we've talked about. They had opportunity after opportunity. And to this point, I've kind of said, well, their offensive line isn't what it shouldn't be, or the defenses are figuring some things out, and not said much about Mahomes, but he was not good on a lot of plays. And we've seen this enough that I don't think it's something that's going to be resolved in the next game or two.
Well, if you're looking for teams that are good, what about Baltimore? They win almost every game late. And they do it in the last seconds, but they win most of those games.
But they could have lost all those
Or
games.
Arizona. How do you win without the guy who's responsible for like 92% of the offense? We're going to talk about more about that. Can I play Stat Boy for 1 second? All right, we talked about Josh Allen sacking Josh Allen, the first time ever a guy with the same name. One of my favorite quirks in NFL history. We once had a Josh Scobie kick off to a Josh Scobie. Spelled differently, but the name Josh Scobie is a lot more rare. The kicker and a kick. You are looking live at tape of film of Cleveland trucking Cincinnati yesterday. In Cincy, Browns 41, Bengals 16. Baker Mayfield had a perfect passer rating for a while. And the first game post Beckham. And Cincinnati, it was the one seed in the AFC for like a second a couple weeks ago. That seems like an eternity ago. Tim? That's a tough L right there. What's the statement, Tim, from this game?
The statement is that Odell Beckham Jr. hasn't been an important player for the Browns since 2019. He's missed more games than he's played in the last 2 seasons. This was a big story for us and for the fans, and the Browns just went out and do what they did. They're one of the best running teams, one of the best teams offensive line, and their pass rush destroyed Cincinnati's weak offensive
Okay, what are you
line.
buying? What are you selling?
I'm selling the narrative that this is a definitive statement about Odell Beckham one way or the other. How about the fact that maybe it's just an incredible confluence of events? They had a rushing touchdown, a passing touchdown, and a defensive touchdown, all of 60-plus yards. First time that's happened in the same game since 1967.
I love the history lesson there, but you do know you're losing a point for a banned word. Let's go, Israel. How about you?
So to me, it was a big win for Baker Mayfield, not only without Odell, but showing that, hey, yes, our strengths are running the ball, but if I'm on my game, we can blow out teams and we can probably beat anybody, because I know Cincinnati lost last week, but they'd looked pretty good going into last week, and you have the big play to Peoples-Jones there. Obviously good for Baker altogether.
Frank Isola.
Yeah, Odell Beckham has yet to prove that he impacts winning when he's on your team, so I'm not going to put it on him. But now that he's gone, they won. Baker was 14 of 21, no interceptions, which is big. And Nick Chubb, who had 14 carries, always seems to score a touchdown in a big game for the Browns. That was a big win, and Joe Burrow struggled. big time.
You know, you're right, though, Jay. I know Chubb had a lot of yards rushing. He didn't have a lot of touches. It wasn't like Baker threw the ball 40 times either. They had some big plays, a confluence of big plays. We'll move on. Panthers, hot on Reddit, calling out Mac Jones for a dirty play. Here it is in Carolina, New England. Is Jones grabbing and twisting Brian Burns' leg? League might look into it. Could be a fine for Mac Jones. For the game, Patriots 24, Panthers 6. New England's 4th win in 5 games. They're half game back of Buffalo now. Jay, what are you buying? What are you selling here?
Buying the Patriots, maybe what Bill Belichick thought and knew they would be. They had an impressive performance in the loss to Tampa Bay, but they showed some good things. They're second in the AFC in point differential, and maybe one of the younger teams Belichick has had is finally coming into its own.
I'm buying that play looking dirty. Now, all you can basically do is just put that in Mac Jones's file and see if any sort of dirty plays come up again down the road. But it appeared that the twist was entirely unnecessary, and I'm buying Bill Belichick being so happy because this all felt so familiar. You make Sam Darnold look terrible. You play a game where you dominate, but no either side of the ball really dominates. And who can you credit? Bill Belichick. So that's why he was so happy.
Frank Isola?
Well, they're absolutely getting better. They won with defense, which is Belichick's bread and butter. There are 4 teams in the NFL that rank in the top 10, scoring offense, scoring defense. Cardinals, Bills, Rams, and Bill Belichick Patriots. Pretty good.
Kalishaw.
I'm buying that we had a very short time to enjoy the Patriots and Belichick not being good. Really thought it would last longer than this.
Hater.
Be right back in the race. And selling whatever it was Mac Jones was doing there, because he grabs one leg and look, he kicks the other foot. So I don't know what happened before it, but that's a bad play.
I mean, you've seen defenders blow up quarterbacks on turnovers, but you've also seen the hot sauce at the end of a play just like that from players before.
Right.
That's going to be a fine, yeah? All right, Frank, we'll move on. How Arizona smoked San Francisco without Kyler Murray and without DeAndre Hopkins? A Colt McCoy game in 2021 and another head-scratching, underwhelming Kyle Shanahan, Jimmy Garoppolo dink and dunk letdown. What to buy, what to sell here, Frank?
Yeah, San Francisco's done. I think it tells you a lot about the Cardinals. Kyler Murray is so important, but he doesn't play. You run the ball. The backup quarterback, Colt McCoy, played better than most starters did yesterday. That is an impressive win for a team that's
Your first sentence there? Did you say San Francisco's done?
I think they are. Done.
Israel Gutierrez, how about you?
Yeah, I totally agree. And if you compare the situations between San Francisco and Kansas City, look at sort of how they've fallen off since that Super Bowl. But at least one of those teams has a quarterback. In this situation with San Francisco, there's not a lot to feel great about for this year. You got to just hope you can turn the ball over to Trey Lance, make something of him for the rest of this season.
You're making that move now, Israel? You're making the move to Trey Lance after what you saw losing?
I would. It's not too early.
That Arizona defense gets at you. Donde, what did you see yesterday?
I think it does tell us more about the state of the 49ers, and maybe it's time to move on and stop trying to win. Certainly Garoppolo was more prepared to help them now, but it ain't working with him. Unless you're prepared to say that the Cardinals are better without their best offensive players, then no, this is about the 49ers.
I'm buying that there was one offensive genius in that stadium yesterday, and he wasn't on the San Francisco sideline. The Cardinals had 370 yards in the middle of the third quarter without Kyler and DeAndre. The man in the shades knows what he's doing.
Heard his MVP chance.
Kalishaw, 28. That'll usually get you into the showdown. I saw 26 usually gets you in the showdown. Not today. Watching a J.A. Donde, Israel Gutierrez showdown. 2 minutes. Playoff rankings, and we only have to change at the top 4. Down goes Michigan State. And also an L for undefeated Wake Forest. So they were number 9, they won't be number 9. Cincinnati won, but Alabama, a little bit of a struggle in their win as well. Let's take a blimp view here. Jay, what's the number 1 takeaway?
We should expand the college football playoffs because we saw once again it's too much to expect these teams to play at their peak throughout the entire season. Allow for them to have some down games.
Israel?
That's great and all, J.A., but they're not changing that this year. So my takeaway is, hey, maybe Cincinnati can get in. If there's a couple more upsets here and there, Alabama obviously didn't look great against LSU. Maybe there's a chance for Cincinnati.
I'm with you, Israel. Alabama, they'll probably move up the way the committee sees them. Oh, Alabama play.